Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to start the panel now. So thank you all for coming to our management panel. And I'm just going to introduce our guests really quickly before we get on to some questions. So this is Daniel Orvek, and he is the executive chef at the Atlantico Hotel. Next to him, we have Pat McGrath. He's the manager of recreation and program services at the Canada Game Centre. And next to him on the end is Erin Surratt, and she's the sales manager at the Prince George Hotel. And this is Donna Casey, who's just coming in, and she is the small business account manager at TD. So, well, question one isn't much of a question, more of an explanation. Could each of you please briefly describe the organization you work for and your position? No particular order. Whoever wants to answer first can go ahead.
Hi everyone, again my name is Erin Surratt and I'm an area sales manager. I work for 3 hotels. I work for the Prince George Hotel, the Cambridge Suites Hotel in Halifax, and the Cambridge Suites Hotel in Sydney. So yeah, it's the Prince George Hotel is the sort of the flagship hotel of those 3, and we're an independent hotel. So we're not a part of a chain you may be more familiar with like Hilton or Marriott. We're an independent hotel. I do have a management company called Atlific, which isn't a recognizable brand, but they do have over 60 hotels across Canada that we're affiliated with, but we really do operate independently. Yeah, so I don't manage actual people in my job as a manager. I manage accounts. So I look after booking conferences, setting up special rates for companies that are doing a lot of travel to the area, all different sorts of things like that. Yeah, that's basically it.
Hello, yeah, my name is Pat McGrath. I'm the recreation manager at the Canada Game Centre. The Canada Game Centre is a non-profit organization. It's run by a volunteer board under a contract with the Halifax municipality. So what that basically means is that the city owns the building, but they didn't want anything to do with actually running it. So they got a bunch of volunteers who then oversee it, and paid staff who actually conduct everything that goes inside. So I oversee all the programs that happen in the building. So anything from camps to karate to swimming lessons to all sorts of different things. So I have about a complement staff of about 200, ranging from 15-year-olds, actually 14-year-olds, because my son just started working this year, all the way up to university students and then full-time staff. We've been open 7 years, and basically we currently have about 1.2 million people walk through the door every year. So it's a fairly busy place. That area, Clayton Park area has been sort of demanding this type of building for a long time. It actually was built 7 years ago, but they had a picture of the center on the front page of the Chronicle Herald in 1993. So that's how long it took for the city to actually build the place.
I'm Daniel Orvek, the executive chef at Atlantico Hotels. Like Erin, I work for an independent hotel. We were just recently purchased by Manga Hotels, which is also a hotel management company. I oversee a staff of about 20 people and responsible for all the culinary operations in the building.
And I'm Donna Casey, and I'm an account manager with TD Canada Trust. So we're one of the top 5 banks in Canada. And I look after the small to mid-range business banking clients. So anyone that's in business for themselves, could be a contractor, could be someone running a B&B, could be a small inn, could be anything. So that's basically what I do, and I have been in that role for probably about 17 years with the bank.
How has your education and experience led you to your current position?
You want me to go first? We'll start this way. So my education was obviously in finance, and that was 30 plus years ago. I'm not going to say how many. And even though my education was in finance and I was doing the more of the personal financial, the CFP, so more of the financial end of it, I continue to take courses, and all the time I've been with TD, and now I'm actually doing the business banking end of it. So it's, while I've always been in finance for the last 30 plus years. As I continued to move within the bank, I continued to take different types of courses and that sort of thing that would help me move into the next role that I took on.
I actually backed into this career. I didn't know what I was going to do when I was getting out of high school, and I ended up going to Humber College in Toronto as a sort of a whim thing, and as they say, took to it like fish like water, and haven't looked back since. I've been involved in small operations, large operations. I've owned my own businesses, and to the point where now I've settled in at the hotel I'm at now as the chef. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I'm like probably the majority of the university students. I went to school because I was supposed to. I did a 3-year bachelor's degree in science. I had no idea exactly what I was going to do with it and what I used. So basically then after I spent probably about 5 or 6 years working about every job you could probably think of, from door-to-door encyclopedia salesman to computer repair to traveling through the States and Europe doing different nuts and jobs. It wasn't until I actually met my wife that she convinced me, or her father convinced me, to go back to school and upgraded my degree to something that was a little bit more useful. But once again, it didn't actually get me the job I wanted. I ended up falling on the job that I actually was most passionate about that really had nothing to do with my university degree, and that was in recreation. I took an entry-level job and slowly worked my way up. And while about 3 years into that job, I realized I wasn't going to get very far unless I had the proper education. So I basically took 2 or 3 credits every year for about 6 years while I was working my full-time job to get a degree in management at Dow. And then I just basically pursued every opportunity on the side. Volunteer work, odd jobs, project management, which basically accumulated into the job I have now, which is in management at the Recreation Center at Canada Game Center.
Okay, so I started at St. Mary's in, well, yeah, a while ago now, and was there for about 1.5 years, and it was time to pick a major, and I didn't know what to pick. I didn't have anything I really wanted to focus on. So I had some interest in travel, and I found out about this tourism program, and I switched to the Mount. So I switched 1.5 years in and started the tourism program here. Really enjoyed it. I think it's given me, it's sort of fast-tracked my career. So in my early 20s, let's see, my first hotel, I did co-op, which was mandatory in the program. I'm not sure if it still is. So I worked for Halifax Tourism, which is, it's a little bit different now, but I worked for Halifax Tourism at the Bedford Visitor Information Center, which no longer exists. Then I worked at the cruise ship terminal, welcoming all the people that would come in from the cruise ships and telling them where to go and what to do in Halifax. Then I went to Disney World. Disney used to come here every year and recruit, so I went there for an entire year. When I came home from that, I still had a little bit of my degree to finish, so I did that. I still needed a little bit of money, so I got a job at the Westin. So kind of fell into that. I always thought I'd focus more on the destination management side of my degree. That's why I was with Halifax Tourism for those couple of terms. But then I got working at the Westin. And was their concierge as well as a front desk agent. I flipped back and forth. Then I got an opportunity to go to the Ramada, which again no longer exists. It's now the Delta by Marriott. And I worked there as I was going to do a mat leave for about 6 months in the sales department, moved into the meetings and conferences role, and then moved into a sales manager role. And this is all before I was 25. I think having the degree certainly made a difference, made people sort of take me a little bit more seriously because they knew I was in it for the long haul. And then I had an opportunity to go downtown to the Prince George, and I've been there for 11 years. So I started working for the Prince George, and then a few years into that, they started asking us to look after sales for the Cambridge Suites Hotel, which they had always owned. And then a few years ago, started working for the Cambridge Suites in Sydney as well. So that's how I got where I am.
What are your career goals, and are you doing what you would plan to do?
So as I mentioned, I have my degree from St. Mary's in financing, and I actually worked with an accounting firm when I got out. I had planned to be that was going to be my role, and 6 months into that role, I thought, shoot me now, literally. And so I went to the bank as their branch accountant just till I figured out what I was going to do. And that wasn't yesterday. That was quite a few years ago. So while I'm still in the finance end of the business, it's certainly not where I originally started out to be a CPA. And I am doing what I plan to do because I've been able to move along with the bank. Some jobs have not really been what I wanted, but they were what I needed to do to get to the next stage, and I really enjoy the job I'm doing right now. I will probably retire from that job. So yeah, it did help me.
Well, barring a lottery win and retiring in Greece, I'm doing what I like to do, but I'd actually like to see at some point getting back involved in the education system. I grew up in Toronto, and I spent a few years as an assistant teacher in the high school system teaching cooking, and I'd like to be able to at some point possibly get back into that in some way or shape or form. Otherwise, though, I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing.
So basically, I come from a military family. So I think all through high school, I thought I was destined to join the military. And I actually tried a few times, but they kept offering me jobs I wasn't really interested in. So basically, I fell into recreation. And my current job goals, I would like to be a general manager of a facility at some point. But what I find really is that today, you're sort of pushed and pressured to kind of keep moving up the ladder as quickly as you possibly can. I have 3 kids. My youngest is entering junior high, my oldest entering high school. Really at this point in my career, I'm just taking my time and just pursuing opportunities on the side that are going to help get my actual job that I want, maybe in 3 or 4 years. A lot of volunteer work, working with committees, working with other things that kind of fill in those gaps and voids. So eventually when I get a little bit point where my kids are moving out of the house and I have some more free time and I can actually dedicate to my end goal, then that's what I'll pursue.
Yeah, so pretty similar here. I think I could have done a lot of different jobs up until this point. I have 3 kids, all under 10 years old. So I'm pretty content with what I'm doing. It keeps me busy, busy enough as I need to be right now. So the next step in my career, an obvious step for me, would be to become a director of sales. So have a team of salespeople that work for me at a hotel. That would mean booting my boss out right now. So I don't see that happening at the Prince George anytime soon. So yeah, but I'm pretty content with where I am now. Again, you sort of begin to appreciate just arriving to a destination for a little while and enjoying your job, and then, like I said, opportunities will come. Just keep staying involved and staying educated, and the next opportunity will show up when it's time.
Can you tell us about the types of jobs that might be available for students considering a career with the company you work for?
Oh, I can. Oh, go
Okay.
ahead.
Nope, you go right.
All right. Well, so there's so many jobs in where I work at the Prince George Hotel. It's pretty varied. We're hiring at the Cambridge Suites Hotel right now, if anyone's interested. So in the sales department, it would kind of go sales coordinator, sales manager, director of sales. There's catering managers, conference services managers. On the front desk, you have your guest service agent, supervisors, managers, bellman, concierge in the guest services department. In banquets, we have banquet servers, supervisors, food and beverage managers, bartenders, servers, room service servers as well. Housekeeping, so we have rooms division managers, room attendants, housekeeping supervisors and managers. Operations managers of the hotel, general manager. That HR manager, so that gives you an idea. Lots in hotels for sure.
Okay, so at the organization I work at, about 80% of the jobs in our organization are part-time student jobs. Everything from lifeguarding to camps to karate programs to working at the front desk or doing birthday parties. So the majority of the jobs are pretty much entry-level jobs for people to do while they're in high school and university. I love recreation. Unfortunately, it is a pretty hard field to crack because there's not that many places available to work. And most organizations usually feed from the bottom up. So if you're interested in a job in recreation, you have to be willing to sort of really start at that bottom level. The only good thing is that if you do, you move up quickly because people move in and out of recreation at a pretty fast pace. At the Canada Game Center, above those part-time jobs, typically you would move into a supervisor level job where you're overseeing a small group of staff, into a coordinator position where you're actually overseeing the development of programs, and then into a management position which oversee those coordinators. So.
Like Aaron, the hotel is always looking for people. I think our greatest need would come from front desk and housekeeping and some food and beverage requirements. With this season, the high season approaching, all the hotels are probably going to be doing a lot of hiring coming up in the next little while. So those are the opportunities there.
So with TD, it depends on where you want to go. If you're local here, it would be our retail branch. So you'd either be a sales advisor or a, I call them tellers, even though that's not the correct name anymore. You would be that. We also have our wealth department. So again, you could be with TD Wealth. So you could be a financial planner or an investment broker, that sort of thing. TD Insurance here is one of, if you're looking for a job that's not so much customer sales orientated, it would be TD Insurance. We have a very big center here on Mumford Road. We actually just amalgamated our West TD Insurance into this insurance center. So with there, you would have the advisor, you'd have a team leader, you'd have HR, you'd have training and development. With TD Bank, for all of those jobs, you could have them all, but the bulk of them are now in Toronto. So our IT department's in Toronto, our HR department's in Toronto, our marketing department's in Toronto. Everything's in Toronto these days. We like to say you can go and be vice president in 2 years in Toronto, right? But within the TD retail network here, you would either be an advisor, or also you could, with myself, be like with TD Commercial, where you're a commercial account manager for either medium or small or large companies, that sort of thing.
What do you see as the key management skills needed to manage organizations today?
My mic's still on, so I'll go. It's funny because we just, as TD, we're one of the sponsors for the Center for Women in Business here. And we do a breakfast with them, and that was the key question this month. And it wasn't what we thought it wasn't listening. And when say it's more knowing yourself and knowing your strengths and your weakness. Once you know yourself, you can manage other people. You know your management skills, and you know where you're strong in and what you kind of might need some help in. So definitely knowing yourself, having the ability to listen is a big thing, and to continue to learn is a big management skill, I think, so that you can continue to learn with your staff as well, and adapt. You have to be able to adapt in this market. I can tell you in 38 years, I've had to adapt to a lot of things, right? So you have to be able to adapt to be a manager. You really do, and you have to be able to adapt to the people that you manage under.
Those are all good points. I would add that understanding that not everybody that works under you is the same. You would have a different approach to each different type of person based on their experiences, their level of education, their backgrounds, and understanding that you have to, as was pointed out, adapt to people. The days of the screaming chef kicking everybody in the butt and throwing pots and pans are essentially over, and knowing that you have to be the one that adapts to everybody on your team to try and bring some cohesion into the atmosphere.
Okay, my view. So time management, in more sense in that work-life balance piece. Yes, it's a job and you got tasks to do, but I think creating an environment where everyone is accepted of that work-life balance. So there's a, if you are driving yourself to the bone and your employees expect them to do yourself, your employees and yourself are not going to be very happy. The next one, accountability. Accountability for your actions and accountability for your work. Initiative is a big one. No one nowadays, I mean, to sit around and wait for someone to tell you to do something, it's not going to get you very far. You got to take that initiative and do it yourself. And the last one, and it's a big one for me, and that's being an affiliative. And that is, you know, not just going to work and saying hi to the people that work for you or work with you, but actually getting to know the people that you work with. And I'm not talking about going out and having, you know, drinks every Friday night or playing golf, but at least, you know, understanding their life beyond the workplace.
So like I mentioned before, I don't actually have a team of people I manage, but certainly can echo everyone's ideas here behind what's important. I also think maybe something that wasn't added is just recognition and rewarding successes is really important. Just people know they're on the right track, and I think that, you know, it's a very important way to appreciate people. You know, setting an example, you know, offering coaching, that kind of thing, I think is really important. And what I think everyone's said is, you know, some form of empathy, you know, really understanding your employees would be perfect. Clear communication is huge. Yeah, so those are some of the things, I think.
Many students struggle when deciding on a career path to pursue. What advice do you have for a young person who cannot decide on a career path? No particular order, anyone can go.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So if you can't decide on a career path, just like get as much experience as you can, doing different things, try anything that interests you. I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly in your field. That's a bonus if you're really sure that's where you want to be, but I just think any kind of experience is great. Just try different things. I did this on my own and also via the co-op program, which I think was so great because I tend to stay in jobs for a long time, so probably if I wasn't in the co-op program, I wouldn't have stopped and started, and I think that was really important to get the experience I needed to, you know where I wanted to be. And I think it's also important to know just when you graduate, you're not, maybe you will, but you're not necessarily going to go out and be the general manager of the hotel when you graduate from this wonderful program. You know, you do have to get that experience and build up your resume, and I think that's, you know, good to know. Like I said, I think it will fast track you, but it is still important to have those building blocks. Maybe they'll just be a little bit shorter with your degree.
Okay, so first one would be, you know, to broaden your education. Don't come into your education thinking that you're going to follow down one particular path, take all your courses down the one particular path, and end up 4 years with student debt and no idea where you actually want to go. You know, take your time. Don't be in a rush. I mean, nowadays, for you guys, when you guys go to do your career in retirement, I mean, the age is only going up. So most likely, a lot of you probably won't retire until the age of 60, 65, and maybe even older. So there's no real super rush to get into your careers right away. So broaden your education, slow it down, and experience things. Also, pursue every opportunity, even the smallest ones, especially here at university, even if it means joining clubs or societies, working part-time jobs, or volunteering. Because unless you're in a co-op program, you're going to come out of university with a degree, but if you weren't working through high school or through university in part-time jobs or pursuing those things, you're not going to have the experience to fall back on when you start doing interviews or trying to sell yourself. So don't be in a rush, broaden your experience, and have fun.
Having fun is the real point. Understanding that if you don't know what you want to do, but you have certain passions that you'd like to be involved with or experience, ask questions. In the culinary field, we have what's known as a stage. So if you wanted to travel across Europe and work for free at different restaurants, if you could afford to do it, it gives you the opportunity to see the different things that are out there for you. And what you think you might want to do may lead you to a different opportunity. And I like to tell I have 3 kids, I tell my kids and I tell my team all the time, be a sponge, soak in everything that you can see, and the things that you don't need or don't want to be involved with, squeeze that out and just keep the good things for it. So, and keeping an open mind towards any sort of possibilities for you.
And I would say the same. I think you you have to decide what you want in life too. Everybody's different. I have two kids and they're totally different. One wants security and she took that path that she knew she would get a job as soon as she got out. And my other one is on his third career. We'll just leave it at that, right? So I think it's important to know what's important to you and then to know what makes you happy, because as everyone said, you have 40 years in front of you and things will change. So when you're kind of looking at what do I want to do for the rest of the life, you don't have to look at it at the rest of my life, but you have to look at maybe in shorter timelines. Like, okay, what do I want for the next 10 years when I'm looking at what career I want? What will make me happy? Do I want something that I can travel? Do I want something that's 9 to 5? That kind of stuff. And do I want something that's going to pay me big money, or am I not a materialist person and I just want to have experiences? So for sure, try everything and keep on learning. Even when you're finished with this may not be your life sort of thing. So just because you've chosen one career, we see it all the time. When I started with the bank, it was like, okay, you've got a job, now you're there for life. People are no longer there for life. They change jobs and all that. So when you're looking at a career, don't think that it's going to be your only career in your life. So just look at what's going to be what you want for the next 10 years maybe, or what you can grow on if you want something different.
What do you like about your work? What do you dislike about it? And what do you find the most challenging?
All right, start with so the current role I'm in, I'm an account manager for small businesses and in Nova Scotia. And for me, it's every day I kind of say, we have that in Nova Scotia, or you do that in Nova Scotia. So what I really like is the variety. I have a huge variety of customers. I service 250 accounts under me, and there's different types. Everybody's different, from the small to a large corporation, different fields, different types of background for them. So I really like learning about the different types of businesses we have. What I don't like is sometimes I can't help them, or I can't give them what they want. So it is always hard when you can't help someone in the way that they would like to be helped. We are still a bank, so you still have to follow those rules. And sometimes you know how passionate somebody is, but it just doesn't fit, that sort of thing. And I especially like I like staying current with the new fields and the new type of businesses that are starting every day here in Nova Scotia. And some things I don't like are the change of policies and procedures, right? They also change daily. So with the bank, you pretty well have to keep current on what our policies and procedures are, and that can sometimes be a struggle. And I don't like having to say no, but I have to.
I think what I like most about what I do is that every day it's a little different. My position means that I have certain things that I do all the time, but you never know what's going to be coming in through the door at any given time. So being able to adapt and meet the guests' needs provides a challenge, which I think a lot of us enjoy in what we do. And I think that would boil down to what I most enjoy about any career choice that I do, is that it's challenging. What I don't like is the paperwork that has to follow with all that challenging information, especially when it's busy and then you have to follow up on that paperwork. It's important, but not my favorite thing to do.
Okay, so things I like most of my job. The first one is working with the community. It's nice to see people come in and actually use your services, enjoy with their family, and learn skills and have a good time. The other part is working with the young staff we have at the Canada Game Center. Like I said, we have quite a few, so it's nice to see them come in, even when they're taking programs at 12 or 13, come in as an employee and work all through high school and most through university, and see them grow and develop into the employees that you want to see. So, and the other thing I like about it, and that's one of the big things about recreation, the field I'm in, is flexibility. There's an extreme amount of flexibility in where I work. It's really good from family time and when I work and how I work and what I do. So that's one of the things I really enjoy. One of the things I dislike about the job, working with the community. Is wonderful to see everyone experience. It can be very challenging a lot. Typically, 5% of the people make the most noise, and you spend a majority of your time dealing with those 5%. When someone writes you an email and wants you to do something about the guy who talks in the hot tub. I mean, you're going to spend an hour of your day trying to convince this guy. That's not a bad thing. So that's one of the things I don't like about it. One of the things I find most challenging is, in my field, is the cyclical nature of my work. So basically, we start, we go 4 months, we rinse and repeat. We start, we go 4 months, we rinse and repeat. So we basically do the same sort of thing over and over and over, right? But the one thing I like about the job is the fact that I have flexibility. So I have that ability to pursue things that sort of break up that cyclical part of it, projects and community events and training, that sort of stuff.
So I think the thing I enjoyed the most is just meeting new people, learning about their companies. I find it really interesting, learning about different organizations, how they do things, how they work, what's important to them. Same as a lot of you guys, every day is different. You never know what you're going to get. And business changes, needs change, and that keeps me on my toes for sure. I work with a great team that works just as hard as I do, so that is important, and it makes it enjoyable when everyone's pulling their weight. And again, very similar work-life balance. I work 4 days a week as opposed to 5 to have an extra day to just do extra things I need to do, and my work has been really accommodating of that, and I'm able to get all my work done. So I really enjoy that, and they know I value that, and it's important. Another thing I really enjoy is just getting positive feedback from clients, knowing that you've made some sort of a difference, that you've helped them out. It makes it all better for sure when you're having a tough time. So challenging wise, I guess, yeah, I think the challenges have certainly gotten easier. You can sort of brush things off a little bit easier after a while, but yeah, just, any kind of conflicts with clients or even with your colleagues when you're working things out. I don't love conflict, but I work through it, but that would be the only challenge.
How can university students best prepare themselves for success in today's business world if they want to pursue a management position?
One of the key things is to keep learning. Don't think just because you're graduating and you have your degree that you're done. I remember my son saying he was done with science and now he's in the food industry. So he's not done with science. So always keep learning, but also research what's available within your organization and what skills you need to get that management job, right? So you can't just expect that you're going to walk in and you want this job and you're going to get it. You have to research, you have to know what skills you need to get that job, and you have to develop those skills. And you also can't be afraid to apply for some jobs. And we see that a lot in our industry, because when they post a job, they'll have a whole listing of what they want for that, and people will say, well, I don't have this, or I don't have that, and we'll say, no, but you have this, this, and this. So don't be afraid to apply for the job if you meet some of the qualifications, and as long as you're willing to continue to learn, I think any management position would take you on and let you learn with them. But for sure, research what's out there and what you think would appeal for you, and then just figure out what you need to do to get to that position.
I agree with the research and not being afraid to take opportunities and risks when they present themselves. And I would add that getting yourself involved in different aspects of what you want to do, and I'll use cooking as an example. If there's a special event going on but you're not scheduled, to come in and help just for the sake of learning or having the opportunity to do something. I would sign up for things when I was in college all the time, regardless of whether it was a paid opportunity or not. It was the life experience and a work experience that really helped build up my resume and focus my attention on where I wanted to be with my career, and lead me to the ability to take on a management position.
Okay, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but interviews, interviews, and interviews, over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many times the best candidate on paper with the best experience, the best qualifications, the worst interview ever. And you end up, so it's the same case. Like if you're in the middle of the road person, you can come in and you can really knock down that interview. You come in, you're confident, you can express yourselves. It makes a world of difference. So if you have opportunities to interview, even if it's just doing it with your friends or doing it with, it's amazing how many bad interviews are out there. Never stop improving yourself. Don't disregard even the smallest opportunity. You'd be surprised sometimes, even the smallest opportunity all of a sudden will lead into something bigger. And once again, risk. Don't be afraid to take risks. I mean, I sold encyclopedias door to door for almost a year and a half. I probably learned more from that than I did my 4 years of my first university degree. So take risks, get out there, do something you don't like, do stuff that makes you uncomfortable, and learn.
My advice would be any of the general managers I've ever known or worked with basically worked their way up from being a bellman at a hotel. So I think, like you said, getting lots of experience is just really important. So working your way from entry level to the top, because ultimately you're going to be overseeing those people that did those jobs. So how much better of a manager would you be if you had actually done the particular position? So I think that that's why you see that so much when you hire somebody from coming in for a management position without that background. That usually doesn't work out great. Yeah, I think it's really important to just work your way up, get lots of experience, and then you can really relate to those people you'd be managing.
That's all I have for questions right now, but does anybody from the audience have any questions they'd like to ask? No? I'll kick one off. I have a question. So if you ever find that there's conflict in your job, how do you guys normally go about handling it? And do you ever find that it's too overwhelming? Maybe like between employees or people that you're communicating with. I guess there's a wide variety, but if there's anything that ever comes up.
I think it's just important to, if you're dealing with conflict with like a colleague that you're working with, it's just kind of understanding all angles and you're just not jumping to conclusions, I think is really important in all conflict. I guess it depends on personalities, but if you just kind of keep a level head, I think that's definitely a good way to go about it.
One of the things I find that's probably really important is not to wait for the conflict to happen. A good organization will pursue, the training or the skills or the information that leads up before conflict happens. Because if you wait, one or two things are going to happen. Either you're not going to be able to deal with it and you're going to lose a really good employee, or you're going to try to pursue the training at that point and it's just not going to come across the same, or people aren't going to accept it, or it's not going to be very useful. So a hallmark of a good organization is someone who is pursuing that sort of stuff before it actually happens.
Being proactive is helpful, I think, though, with when you have a situational conflict, and again, going back to the kitchen, if something's going wrong and a cook is having conflict with a server for whatever reason, oftentimes being able to step back and understand what the real problem is as opposed to what somebody may think the problem is. There's a lot of miscommunication in the workplace, and that's probably, I'd venture to say, 80% of where conflict comes from. Somebody said something the wrong way, or somebody heard something the wrong way, and being able to pull back and actually open up the door for proper communication. And the other thing is knowing that, and this comes from being in the business for a long time, the sun's still going to come up tomorrow. So you have to understand that this is going to happen, deal with it, and move on, and hopefully learn from it as well.
I would agree. You really have to, and I remember one person I work with said to me one day, was this the worst thing that happened today, sort of thing? And you've kind of got to look at the conflict and see how important it is and try to head it off before it becomes a huge conflict. So you really need to listen to both sides and not just be set in your own version of what happened or what should be happening. So definitely you need to listen and you need to understand the conflict before you can actually address how to deal with the conflict. you have to realize what actually is a conflict, and it may not be what you think it was, but it was from the result of something different. So that's a big thing, to listen and to kind of not, if you can help it, depending on the type of conflict, not react right away, but just kind of listen, figure out what actually is the issue and what's the best way to address it, sort of thing. And kind of look at it and see how big is the conflict really, and how much do you have to actually, can it be solved with a little bit, or does it need some deep decision and some deep movement? But conflict's a fact of life, so you have to learn how to adjust to it, and listening is one of the big things, and being able to actually see what is causing the conflict. Is it controllable or is it not controllable? And if it's controllable, to control it as soon as possible.
Questions from anybody? Yep. Oh, down here. Go ahead.
I want to ask, is there any sacrifices that you have made or that happened to you as a result once you moved up to a management position?
I mean, we talked about you pursuing a career that you're passionate about and that you really enjoy. And a lot of times you enjoy it at the entry level because you get your hands on it, you're doing a lot of, you're very involved. Unfortunately, what happens with management is you tend to move out of that a little bit more. I think the key is to find ways to still enjoy those aspects that you got involved for. For example, I got involved and I moved to management. I sit behind a desk and do a lot of paperwork, but then I also, coach the junior high school, or I do some volunteer work with some volunteer boards. So you have to find other ways to keep yourself engaged. But yeah, generally what happens through time is you kind of move out of the real reason why you got into the job in the first place. And if you really do find yourself getting to that point, you got either to make a couple of decisions. Either A, like I said, find a way to enjoy it, or B, move on to something else.
I think part of it too, you definitely give up sacrifices. You work with, as you move into management roles and that, you've worked with people that you really like, and you leave that team behind, and sometimes you're very close to that team, so you're definitely sacrificing some of the networking that you've got in place. You'd be ludicrous if anyone said that you weren't giving up some family time. So you do, if you want to, sometimes a job is not always 9 to 5 sort of thing. So you definitely have given up some of that, but you have to look at what you've got on the other side. And definitely I would say the biggest sacrifice is as you move along and become higher up in the management team, you do leave behind some of the team that you've built, and you also have to start to manage people that you've been a team member with. So there's some sacrifices on that end too, as you become their manager and not their teammate sort of thing.
I would add that you end up sacrificing your health, your sanity to a degree, your family life for sure. At the other end of the equation though, you're doing something that hopefully you love to do. So I never looked at it as a sacrifice. I wish I had more time with my kids when they were younger, but I was doing something I wanted to do. And you make adjustments, you make trade-offs, and you do the best you can do at the end of the day. And hopefully when you get to the end, you're not looking at it as saying, I wasted everything I did. If you enjoy what you do and you're passionate about it, it shouldn't hopefully be a sacrifice, except for the sanity, that's gone. So.
I echo all the similar sentiments there. And yeah, that's the decision I had made with having a young family, is deciding to just drop a day of work off. And yeah, that's challenging. Sometimes I do have to do a little bit in the evenings. Sometimes, yeah, it's busy balancing it all. But I think that's just, you live and learn, you figure out your balance, and you make it work. But yeah, I wanted to keep a little bit of my sanity, so I call it my sanity day.
Questions from anybody else? Yeah.
So, like you all mentioned, that
I'll say it, I think you have to be organized. You have to realize that as a manager, you're responsible for other people, and you have to be organized with what you do. And if it's not your strength, you as a manager will have to figure out how to get organized. You know, we've said you have to listen, and you have to understand what your job as a manager actually is, what it pertains, right? For sure. And that you are responsible for other people, and you're responsible for your organization, right? So whether your organization succeeds or not definitely will matter on how you manage your people for success.
Organization is huge. I would add that you serve two masters when you're sort of middle management. You're serving the organization, and for me, more importantly, I serve my team. My job as a manager, the way I see it, is that I'm there to support them. I give them the tools that they need, whether it's the raw materials or the time, the proper equipment, and then just the general support. Nobody expects me to go and work the line in the restaurant, thankfully. But I'm there to make sure that they have what they need to succeed. And that, to me, is, I think, what makes a good manager, someone who's not only willing to jump in, but also giving them the support that they need, and then getting out of the way and letting them succeed as they're going along.
Without repeating too much, I think one of the things you have to really understand is your own personal leadership style. I mean, it's going to change over time, but if you have a true understanding of your leadership style, you'll be able to interact with the people around you who have different types of styles a little bit better, because you'll understand, if you know how you're going to deal with the situation, you'll understand how you can interact with people who have different types of styles. And it will change over time, but you really got to kind of understand that. And when you do interviews, a lot of the questions sometimes they'll ask you that direct question. What is your leadership style, right? So.
As I mentioned, I don't actually manage people, I manage accounts, but still at the same time, I feel in a similar way. I'm working for my clients and I'm working for the hotels, and I'm trying to find that happy medium where I can meet their needs and meet the hotel's needs and everybody's happy. So, but I mean, I'll keep all of these tips in mind for when I do manage people.
Yep.
How do you keep a level of professionalism when you're working with lower level management and employees? I had heard, like, you said that you had people who were originally your team members and then you became the management of them. How would you keep that level of professionalism?
You just do, yes. I think ultimately you have to know what your role is in the job that you do, and you always have to treat people respectfully, right? No matter what, you have to treat them with respect. So even if you've moved on to being the management, and the first role I had, I was managing people when I was 25, and my boss had said at the time, I don't know, you're managing people that are 40 and 45, sort of thing. We don't know how you're going to adapt. And you just have to make sure that you understand your role, you keep it professional at all times, and you respect the people that you manage. I think that's the biggest thing. As long as you respect the people that you manage, you can move along from being their coworker to being their manager, as long as you don't ever lose the respect for them.
Yeah, I would add to that you want to, every career up here is going to be a little different, but you walk a fine line between being someone's buddy to a certain extent and being someone's boss to another extent. There are times that I have to, people come in my office crying, something's happened, there's something wrong, they just need a person to talk to, and at the same time, I got to go tell them to clean out the grease traps, as an example. Not a fun job to do, but you walk that line and hopefully you have their respect and you respect them enough that there's an understanding that I'll be your person you can come to if you need to, but there's still things that need to get done as well. So it's a fine line you walk.
For sure.
I'll be honest, early in my career I didn't do a very good job about it. There's always a transition time when you move from one job to the management position, where you will manage a lot of people that you work with. I was fortunate because I had picked an organization, and I picked the organization not just for the job, but also because who it was and the people that worked there. And so they were able to provide, in that time frame where I was probably not making some of the best choices as a manager, there was people there to guide me. So I had other managers in that place. And then as I moved to other careers, you take those lessons and you apply them to it. I would say that as you get older, those issues become a lot less, right? So when you're in that first 10-year period, you'll run into it a lot more in terms of those type of conflicts than you will later in your career.
And I don't have a lot of experience with this, but I would just agree that just being confident in your role and respecting that person, respecting and understanding what you do, and sort of when you do have to kind of step in, I think is important.
Anybody else? Yeah.
So, like the books say that your organization should be like customer oriented. So sometimes like customers and like employees they have like conflicts. So according to like the panel, like what is the solution for that? Do you like should you like keep your organization completely customer oriented and like forget about the employees, or should it be like employee oriented as well and make a balance?
Yeah, it's funny because you say when you talk about customer service and someone's complaining or causing an issue and that sort of stuff, right? Sometimes the customer service is to cut them off, because if you've got one person and you've got 99 people behind them, including your employees, if you're going to try to solve their problem by making 99 other people unhappy or making your employees unhappy, then you sometimes make the hard decision. So customer service always isn't about making people happy. Sometimes it's about making the right decision for the other people who are customers and for your employees. So, for example, the Canada Game Center, we have memberships. We have about 9,000 members. I would say, not often, but occasionally we do ask members to cancel their membership over behavior or the way they act, because even though we want to sell people products and stuff, their behavior is affecting all the other customers or all the other staff. So it's not really a solid line. Sometimes good customer service is not, the customer's not right? And I've had many customer service training sessions. The person came in and says, you shouldn't cater to those 5 people, you just cut them off, right? Because you sometimes will spend 80% of your time or 90% of your time dealing with 1% of the people. And sometimes you just gotta, right? So that might sound a little mean, but
I don't know if in your textbooks they talk about Pareto's law, 80% of your problems are caused by 20% of the people that you're surrounded with. And that could be employees or customers. I once said in a job interview, the customer is hardly ever right, but it's our job to make them feel like they're right. But you draw a line, like you said. We don't accept abuse in any sort of way, and you have to, your team needs to know that you're there for them if somebody's gone off the rails, a guest or a customer who is abusive, is not understanding the true issue that's before them. We try and make it right, but if there's no reasoning, then at that point we just cut our losses and move on, type thing. You have to be pretty firm with that kind of thing. You draw a line, and it stops at if someone starts raising their voice or starts using vulgar language and things like that, conversation's over. We just don't accept it anymore after that.
So we have a customer service index and a customer service. So customer service obviously is huge for us. So one of the things that we do definitely say is a lot of times, as long as you acknowledge the customer, not the abusive, like if they're vulgar or abusive or that, you record it and that conversation is done. And I've said many times, you either stop using that or we're done, right? But with us, a lot of the times sometimes it is our issue. we make mistakes. So owning the problem and fixing it if you can. One of the things we say is the person should only have to tell their issue once. And so we do have steps in place where you address it at the branch level, you address it at the management level, we have a customer cares level, and sometimes, sadly, we can't fix your problem, right? Like sometimes you are wrong, right? But we go through the steps, and we've said to the client, this is what the issue is, and this is why you're wrong. And sometimes it may be a conflict between a staff member and a client, and nobody's right? But we try to fix it the best we can. So we do have steps in place for our customer service, but again, like it depends on what the complaint is. If it's a service fee or whatever, well, that sort of thing. But if they're being rude or obnoxious, we just don't have time for that. Our staff is also our customers, is the way we look at it. So everyone has to be treated fairly.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's very important to have that respect, and I know a lot of situations where we have just sort of, like you said, cut our ties with clients where it's just not going to work. But yeah, it's not black and white for sure.
Anybody else? No? Is there anything that you guys want to add? Anything we didn't discuss that you feel like we should, or any like last minute advice? No? All good? Okay. Well, thank you for coming. Yep. It's always great to hear all the advice and insights from people who actually work in the industry. So thank you.